The radio crackled with static before Captain Wagner's voice cut through the silence of the patrol car like a blade. Officer Jake Morrison sat frozen in the driver's seat, his hand trembling on the steering wheel, unable to process the words he'd just heard. "Morrison, I'm giving you a direct order. Put the dog down. Now." Jake looked down at Rex, his canine partner of 4 years, sitting in the passenger seat with those intelligent brown eyes fixed on him with absolute trust. The German Shepherd's black and tan coat was still damp from the rain, his ears alert, his tail giving a small wag as if to say, "What's next, partner?" They were parked in an abandoned industrial lot 3 miles from the precinct, surrounded by rusted shipping containers and broken streetlights. No witnesses, no cameras, just Jake, Rex, and an order that made his blood run ice cold. "Sir, I don't understand." "You don't need to understand, Officer Morrison. You need to follow orders. The dog is compromised. He's become aggressive, unpredictable, a liability. This is for everyone's safety." Jake's throat tightened. Rex had never shown a single sign of aggression in 4 years. Not once. The dog was gentle with children, patient with victims, fierce only when protecting the innocent. But tonight, Rex had done something that apparently signed his death warrant. He'd alerted to evidence in a warehouse that was supposed to be clean. Evidence that Captain Wagner had personally cleared. Evidence that, according to the official report, didn't exist. Jake looked into Rex's trusting eyes, then down at his service weapon, and in that moment, he understood with perfect clarity. Someone wanted Rex dead not because he was dangerous, but because he'd found the truth. "Officer Morrison, I need confirmation. Are you following the order?" Jake's hand moved to his weapon, and Rex's tail stopped wagging. The dog knew. Somehow, he always knew. What happened in the next 60 seconds would cost Jake Morrison everything he'd worked for, everything he'd built, and force him to make a choice between the badge he'd sworn to honor and the partner who'd never once betrayed him. Some orders, he realized, were meant to be disobeyed. If this story touched your heart, leave your like, subscribe to Rex, the K9 Hero channel, turn on notifications, and share this video so more people can believe in loyalty and justice. The morning started like any other morning for Officer Jake Morrison. Alarm at 5:30 a.m., 10-minute shower, protein shake for breakfast, while Rex ate from his bowl in the corner of the small kitchen. The German Shepherd always finished first, then sat at attention watching Jake with those patient brown eyes, tail thumping occasionally against the hardwood floor. Yeah, I'm coming," Jake muttered, rinsing his glass and grabbing his keys. Rex was already at the door, ears alert, body practically vibrating with excitement. 4 years together, and the dog still got excited for every shift like it was his first day on the job. They took the stairs down from Jake's second-floor apartment, Rex maintaining perfect heel position even though there was no one around to see it. 8 years as a cop had taught Jake that discipline was everything. Do it right every time, even when no one's watching, and it becomes habit. The same principle applied to K9 training. The patrol car was parked in its usual spot, the early morning sun just starting to paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Jake opened the passenger door, and Rex jumped in with practiced ease, settling into the seat that had been modified with a protective cover and safety restraint. The dog waited patiently while Jake secured him, then gave a small woof of approval. "Ready to catch some bad guys, partner?" Rex's tail wagged, and Jake could have sworn the dog smiled. The shift briefing was at 6 a.m. sharp. Captain Wagner stood at the front of the room as he did every morning, going through the overnight reports with military precision. Jake sat in his usual spot, 3 rows back, Rex lying quietly at his feet. The dog had learned years ago that briefings meant stillness and silence, though his ears tracked every sound in the room. "Morrison." Wagner's voice cut through the routine updates, and Jake felt Rex's ears perk up. "You and the dog are on Riverside Patrol today. We've had reports of homeless encampments in the warehouse district. Clear them out. Make sure there's no drug activity." "Yes, sir," Jake replied automatically, though something in Wagner's tone felt off. The captain was looking at him with an intensity that seemed excessive for a routine patrol assignment. Sarah Chen caught Jake's eye from across the room and gave a subtle shake of her head, so slight that anyone not paying attention would miss it. Jake had known Sarah for 3 years, had worked half a dozen cases where their paths crossed, and he'd learned to read her signals. That tiny head shake meant, "Be careful." But careful of what? The briefing ended, officers dispersed, and Jake was heading for his car when Sarah intercepted him in the parking lot. She moved casually, as if just happening to walk the same direction, and spoke without looking at him directly. "Jake, that warehouse assignment, be thorough, okay? Really thorough." "What am I looking for?" "I don't know yet. But Wagner personally requested you for that route. He never does that." She paused, pretending to check her phone. "And Jake? Whatever you find, document everything before calling it in." She walked away before he could respond, leaving Jake with a knot of unease in his stomach. Rex sensed it immediately when they got in the car. The dog's posture changed, becoming more alert, more focused. After 4 years together, Jake shouldn't have been surprised. Rex always knew when something was wrong, often before Jake himself fully acknowledged it. "It's fine, boy," Jake said, more to himself than the dog. "Just a routine patrol." The Riverside Warehouse District was a graveyard of industry, a collection of abandoned buildings and rusted equipment that had once been the manufacturing heart of the city. Now it was home to the forgotten, homeless veterans, addicts, people who'd slipped through society's cracks. Jake had worked this area before, knew most of the regular faces, treated them with the respect Wagner's orders rarely acknowledged. He pulled into the lot of the largest warehouse, the one locals called the Cathedral, because of its high ceilings and Gothic-style windows. The morning sun struggled to penetrate the grime on those windows, creating an atmosphere of perpetual twilight inside. "Come on, Rex. Let's do a sweep." They approached the building through a service entrance that had long since lost its door. The interior was exactly as Jake expected. Makeshift shelters of cardboard and tarps, scattered belongings, the smell of unwashed bodies and desperation. But most of the occupants had already cleared out for the day, heading to wherever they spent their daylight hours. One old man remained, a Vietnam veteran Jake knew as Pops, sitting on a folded blanket with a cup of what might have been coffee. "Morning, Officer Morrison. Morning, Rex." "Morning, Pops." "Anyone cause any trouble here last night?" "Quiet as a church, son. We keep to ourselves, you know that." Jake did know that. The people here weren't criminals. They were survivors. He'd never understood Wagner's insistence on clearing them out every few weeks, especially when they always came back. "I've got to do a walkthrough, Pops. Official business." The old man nodded, understanding the game. "You do what you got to do." Jake and Rex moved deeper into the warehouse, past the obvious areas where people had been sleeping, toward the back where massive industrial shelving units still stood like silent sentinels. This section had been storage once upon a time. Now it was just empty space and shadows. Rex's behavior changed. The shift was subtle, ears forward, nose working overtime, tail going still, body tensing. Jake had seen it hundreds of times before. It was Rex's alert posture, the one that meant the dog had found something. "What is it, boy? Show me." Rex moved forward with purpose, weaving through the shelving units with Jake following. They went deeper into the warehouse than Jake had ever ventured, to a section that looked completely abandoned, untouched by human presence for years. Except it wasn't. Rex stopped at what appeared to be a solid concrete wall, but when Jake looked closer, he could see the seams. It was a false wall, installed to create a hidden space, and Rex was alerting to whatever was behind it. Jake's training kicked in. He pulled out his phone, started recording video, documenting the location, Rex's clear alert signal, the suspicious wall. Sarah's words echoed, "Document everything before calling it in." The wall section wasn't locked, just cleverly camouflaged. Jake pulled, and it swung open on hidden hinges, revealing a space about 12 feet by 12 feet. What he found inside made his blood run cold. Shelves of evidence bags, hundreds of them. Drugs, weapons, cash, all tagged with official police evidence labels, all supposed to be locked in the precinct's evidence vault. But here they were, in an abandoned warehouse, stored like inventory in a criminal enterprise. Jake's hands shook as he filmed everything, evidence from cases he recognized, some going back years. This wasn't a mistake or an isolated incident. This was systematic. This was organized. This was... His phone rang. Captain Wagner. "Morrison, what's your status?" Jake's mouth was dry. "Still clearing the warehouse, sir. Found some homeless individuals, processing them now. Any findings that need to be reported?" The question felt loaded, dangerous. Jake looked at Rex, who was sitting at attention, watching him with those trusting brown eyes. "Negative, sir. Nothing to report." "Good. When you're finished there, I need you to bring Rex back to the station. Alone. We need to run some behavioral assessments." Every instinct Jake had screamed warning. "Sir, Rex has been performing perfectly. Is there a specific concern?" "Just following protocol, Officer Morrison. Bring him in within the hour." The call ended, and Jake stood in that hidden room, surrounded by evidence of massive corruption, and understood with perfect clarity. Wagner knew. Wagner had sent him here, but not to find this. Wagner had sent him here expecting him to miss it, to do a cursory check and leave. But Rex hadn't missed it. Rex had done exactly what he was trained to do, find the evidence and alert, and now Wagner wanted Rex back at the station, alone, for behavioral assessment. Jake's father had been killed investigating police corruption. The official story was a robbery gone wrong, but Jake had never believed it. And now, standing in a warehouse full of stolen evidence, he understood that some secrets were worth killing for, even worth killing a dog for. He carefully closed the false wall, made sure everything looked undisturbed, and headed back through the warehouse with Rex at his side. Pops was still sitting in the same spot, nursing his coffee. "Find what you were looking for, son?" Jake met the old man's eyes. Pops had been a Marine, had served 3 tours, had eyes that had seen too much. He knew when something was wrong. "Yeah," Jake said quietly. "I found exactly what someone didn't want me to find. That dog of yours, he's a good one, smart. The best. Man's got to stand by his partner, Officer Morrison, no matter what." Jake nodded, understanding the message. Pops might be homeless, might be forgotten by society, but he understood loyalty better than most. Back in the patrol car, Jake sat with his hands on the wheel, engine off, trying to think. His phone had the video evidence of the hidden room. Rex had clearly alerted, making him a witness to the find. Wagner wanted Rex back at the station for behavioral assessment. None of this was coincidence. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Instead of heading back to the precinct, he drove to the edge of the city, to a strip mall with free Wi-Fi. He uploaded the video to a cloud service, sent copies to 3 separate email addresses, and created a detailed report of everything he'd found. Then his phone rang again. Wagner. "Morrison, why aren't you back at the station? I gave you a direct order." "On my way now, sir. Traffic's heavy." "Cut the bullshit, Officer Morrison. I know you found the room. I know the dog alerted, and I know you're smart enough to understand what that means." Jake's grip tightened on the phone. "Sir, I don't know what you're talking about. You have 2 choices, Morrison. Bring that dog back, we'll handle the situation quietly, and you'll be reassigned to a desk where you can't cause problems. Or you can try to be a hero like your father, and we both know how that ended." The mention of Jake's father hit like a physical blow. "What do you know about my father?" "I know he asked too many questions. I know he found evidence he shouldn't have found. And I know that sometimes accidents happen to officers who can't follow simple orders." Wagner's voice was cold, matter of fact. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to drive to the old industrial lot on Riverside and 5th. No other units, no backup, just you and the dog. And you're going to fix the problem." "Fix the problem?" "The dog is compromised, Morrison. He's become aggressive, unstable, a danger to officers and civilians. You're going to put him down, humanely. Then you're going to come back to the station, file the appropriate paperwork, and accept your new assignment. Everyone moves forward." Jake felt like he couldn't breathe. "You want me to kill my partner? I want you to follow a direct order. What happens if you don't? Well, cops die in the line of duty all the time, especially ones who make the wrong enemies." The call ended. Jake sat in the parking lot, hands shaking, Rex looking at him with concern. The dog leaned over, pressed his nose against Jake's arm, offering comfort the way he'd been trained to do. "What do I do, boy?" Jake whispered. "What the hell do I do?" Rex's answer was to rest his head on Jake's lap, trusting completely. Jake had two choices: follow Wagner's order, kill his innocent partner, and become complicit in corruption that had probably killed his father, or refuse and become a target himself. Some choices, he realized, weren't really choices at all. He started the car and drove toward the industrial lot Wagner had specified. But his mind was racing, planning, calculating. He had evidence uploaded to the cloud. He had witnesses. Pops had seen them. Others in the warehouse could confirm their presence. He had Rex, whose training records would show he'd never been aggressive. What he didn't have was backup. Wagner controlled the precinct, had loyalists in key positions, and had been running this operation for years. Going through official channels would be suicide. The industrial lot was exactly as Wagner had described: isolated, no cameras, no witnesses. The perfect place for an execution. Jake pulled in, killed the engine, and sat in the silence. Rex was alert now, sensing the tension radiating from his partner. The dog knew something was wrong. 4 years together, and he always knew. The radio crackled. Wagner's voice. "Morrison, I'm giving you a direct order. Put the dog down, now." Jake looked down at Rex, at those intelligent brown eyes fixed on him with absolute trust. The German Shepherd's black and tan coat was still slightly damp from morning dew, his ears alert, his tail giving a small wag. Jake's hand moved to his service weapon, and Rex's tail stopped wagging. "Officer Morrison, I need confirmation. Are you following the order?" Jake made his choice. "No, sir. I'm not." He started the car, hit the gas, and drove away from the lot at high speed. Behind him, he could hear Wagner's voice erupting from the radio, but he switched it off. Rex, sensing the change in energy, was standing now, body braced against the acceleration. Jake grabbed his personal cell phone, called the only person he thought might help. "Sarah Chen." "It's Jake. I need help. Wagner just ordered me to execute Rex." There was a pause. Then, "Where are you?" "Leaving the industrial lot on Riverside." "Sarah, there's a hidden room in the cathedral warehouse, full of evidence that's supposed to be in our vault. Rex found it. Wagner knew I'd find it. This whole thing was a setup." "How much evidence?" "Hundreds of bags. Drugs, weapons, cash. Years' worth. It's massive." Another pause. "Jake, do you trust me?" "Right now, you're the only one I trust." "Then listen carefully. Don't go home. Don't go anywhere predictable. Wagner will have units looking for you within minutes. You're about to become a fugitive." "I'm already a fugitive. I just disobeyed a direct order and fled the scene." "No." Sarah's voice was firm. "You refused an illegal order to execute your partner. There's a difference. But Wagner will spin this. He'll say Rex is dangerous, that you've had a breakdown, that you're a threat. By the time you try to explain, it'll be too late." Jake was driving on autopilot, No destination in mind, just putting distance between himself and Wagner. What do? I have a cabin about 40 miles north. Off the grid, no one knows about it. Get there, lay low, and give me time to work this from the inside. I've been investigating Wagner for 8 months, but I didn't have proof. If what you found is as big as you say, it might be enough. He knew about my father, Sarah. He implied he was involved in his death. Then we bring him down, Jake, but we do it smart. Send me the location of that hidden room. Send me everything you filmed and then ditch your phone. Wagner can track it. Use the burner I'm going to leave at the cabin. You've been planning for this? I've been planning for the day I'd have enough evidence to move against him. I just didn't expect it to happen like this. She gave him directions to the cabin. Jake, once you go dark, there's no coming back until this is finished. You understand that? I understand. And Rex, can you keep him under control in hiding? Jake looked at the German shepherd who was watching him with complete trust despite the chaos. Rex isn't the problem. He never was. Good. Get to the cabin. I'll contact you through the burner. And Jake, watch your back. Wagner's got people everywhere. The call ended. Jake memorized the directions, then pulled into a gas station. He removed the SIM card from his phone, destroyed it, and left the dead phone in a trash can. As far as Wagner was concerned, Jake Morrison had just gone dark. With Rex beside him, no badge, no backup, and nothing but the truth on his side, Jake headed north toward a cabin in the woods and a confrontation with a corrupt system that had killed his father and would kill him too if given the chance. But as he drove through the morning traffic, one hand on the wheel and the other resting on Rex's head, Jake felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Wagner wanted Rex dead because the dog had found the truth. Well, now Jake was going to make sure that truth came out, no matter the cost. The industrial landscape gave way to suburbs, then to rural farmland, and finally to forested roads that wound through hills Jake barely remembered existed. Rex settled into the passenger seat, occasionally looking at Jake as if to ask where they were going, but trusting that wherever it was, they were going together. The cabin appeared exactly as Sarah had described. Small, weathered, set back from the road and surrounded by pine trees. A lockbox under the porch held a key, and inside Jake found basic supplies, a laptop with encrypted connection, and 3 burner phones. Sarah had been planning for this day for a long time. Jake secured the cabin, checked all the windows, and made sure Rex had water and food. The dog explored the new space with professional thoroughness, then settled near the door in guard position, as if understanding they were hiding from something dangerous. One of the burner phones rang. You made it? Sarah's voice sounded relieved. We're here. Now what? Now we build a case. I'm going to need everything you found, everything you filmed, and everything you remember. Wagner's already put out a bolo on you. Armed and dangerous, possibly unstable. Do not approach. He's spinning you as a threat. What about Rex? He's calling the dog aggressive, claiming you've become emotionally compromised and dangerous. He's got Dave Kowalski leading the search for you. Dave worships Wagner, thinks he's the perfect cop. Jake remembered Dave, young, eager, ambitious. The kind of officer who followed orders without question. Dave will do whatever Wagner tells him. Exactly. Which means we have maybe 48 hours before this gets out of control. I need you to tell me everything, Jake. Start from the beginning. So Jake did. He told her about the morning briefing, Wagner's specific assignment to the warehouse, the hidden room, Rex's perfect alert, the stolen evidence. He told her about Wagner's phone call, the threats, the order to execute Rex, and the implication about his father's death. Sarah listened without interrupting, and when he finished, there was a long silence. Jake, what you found, it's bigger than Wagner. Evidence doesn't just walk out of a precinct vault. He'd need help. People in the evidence room, people in administration, probably people in the DA's office to make sure cases don't get too closely examined. How deep does this go? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. In the meantime, you need to stay hidden. Wagner's going to be looking for you everywhere you've ever been, everyone you've ever known. Jake looked at Rex, who was watching him with calm, patient eyes. I've got supplies for maybe a week. After that, we either have enough to bring Wagner down, or we're both finished. Sarah paused. Jake, I need to know. Are you all in on this? Because once we start, there's no going back. Wagner will come after you with everything he has. Jake thought about his father, about 8 years wearing the badge with honor, about Rex trusting him completely even when ordered to kill him. I'm all in. Good. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start fighting back. The call ended, and Jake was alone in a cabin in the woods with his K-9 partner, wanted by the very department he'd served faithfully, accused of crimes he hadn't committed, and facing a conspiracy that had been running for years. He should have been terrified. Instead, as he sat on the floor with Rex's head in his lap, he felt something like peace. For the first time in his career, he wasn't following orders. He wasn't checking boxes or maintaining the chain of command. He was just doing what was right. Rex sighed, content, and Jake scratched behind the dog's ears. We're in it now, boy. No backup, no badge, just you and me against Wagner and everyone he controls. Rex's tail thumped against the floor. Yeah, Jake smiled. I figured you'd be okay with that. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the forest in shades of orange and gold. Somewhere in the city, Wagner was spinning his narrative, turning Jake into a villain and hunting for them both. But here in this cabin, surrounded by trees and silence, Jake Morrison made a promise to his partner and to himself. They were going to expose the truth. They were going to bring Wagner down, and they were going to prove that some loyalties, like the bond between a cop and his K-9, were stronger than corruption, fear, or orders from above. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. Tonight, they rested, and Rex, trusting completely, slept peacefully beside his partner, unaware that he'd become the most wanted dog in the city simply for doing his job too well. The first night in the cabin passed slowly. Jake slept in brief intervals, jerking awake at every sound, a branch scraping the window, an owl calling in the distance, Rex shifting position on the floor. Each time, his hand went instinctively to where his service weapon should have been, then remembered he'd left it locked in the patrol car's trunk before fleeing. He was unarmed, hunted, and completely dependent on staying hidden. Rex, by contrast, slept peacefully. The German Shepherd had positioned himself between Jake and the door, a habit from years of training, and his steady breathing was the only constant in the darkness. Even in exile, even wanted by the entire police department, Rex trusted his partner completely. That trust, Jake thought as dawn light began filtering through the cabin's dusty windows, was both humbling and terrifying. Rex had no idea they were fugitives. He just knew they were together, and that was enough. The burner phone rang at exactly 6 a.m. Sarah. You survived the night. Barely slept, but yeah, any news? Sarah's voice was tight, controlled. Wagner held a press conference an hour ago. He's calling you a rogue officer who suffered a mental breakdown after refusing to have Rex evaluated for aggressive behavior. He's saying you threatened fellow officers and fled with a dangerous animal. The story's all over the local news. Jake closed his eyes, felt the weight of it settling on his chest. So I'm the villain. You're the narrative he's selling. Unstable cop, dangerous dog, threat to public safety. He's got the mayor backing him, the union saying all the right things about mental health resources for officers under stress. It's a perfect story. Except it's a lie. Except it's a lie, Sarah agreed. But lies with official backing are hard to fight. Dave Kowalski is leading a 12-officer task force dedicated to finding you. They're checking your apartment, your gym, your usual spots. They talk to your neighbors, your ex-girlfriend, everyone. They won't find anything. I haven't been to any of those places. I know, but Wagner's thorough. He's also put out feelers to your father's old contacts. People who knew him on the force. He's trying to predict where you'd run." Jake's blood went cold. "My father's contacts are all retired or dead." "Not all of them. There's one still active. Detective Michael Torres, robbery homicide. He worked with your dad for 6 years before—" Sarah trailed off. "Before my dad was killed investigating corruption." Jake finished the sentence, pieces clicking into place. "Torres knew what my dad was looking into?" "I don't know. But Wagner's had 2 conversations with him in the last 12 hours. That's not coincidence." Jake stood, started pacing the small cabin. Rex's ears tracked his movement, the dog's body tensing slightly at the agitation. "Torres was at my dad's funeral. He told me my father was the best cop he'd ever worked with. If he knew something, why wouldn't he have said? Maybe he was scared. Maybe he was compromised. Or maybe he's been waiting 16 years for someone to ask the right questions." Sarah paused. "Jake, I think your father's death and Wagner's operation are connected. The timeline fits. Wagner got promoted to Evidence Division Supervisor 3 months after your dad died. He's been there ever since, with unprecedented access and minimal oversight." The cabin suddenly felt too small, the walls pressing in. Jake's father had been investigating evidence tampering. Wagner ran the Evidence Division. His father died under suspicious circumstances. Wagner thrived. "He killed my dad." "I don't have proof of that. Not yet. But I'm going to find it." Sarah's voice hardened with determination. "Today I'm going to the evidence vault. I have legitimate access for active cases. I'm going to document everything I can, cross-reference the inventory against the items you found in that warehouse. If there's a pattern, if there's proof of systematic theft, we'll have the beginning of a case." "Sarah, if Wagner suspects you're helping me?" "He already suspects everyone. That's how paranoid men like him operate. But I've been careful, Jake. I've been building this investigation for months, always with plausible deniability. I'm just a detective doing my job, checking evidence for my cases, asking routine questions." "Until you're not. Until he realizes you're actually building a case against him. Then I better work fast." The sound of a car starting came through the phone. "I'm heading to the precinct now. Keep this phone on. If I find something urgent, I'll call. Otherwise, I'll contact you tonight with an update." "Sarah, be careful." "You too. And Jake, keep Rex close. Wagner wants him dead for a reason, which means that dog knows something that scares him." The call ended, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts and his partner. He looked at Rex, who had stood when Jake started pacing, and now sat at attention, watching with those intelligent dark eyes. "What do you know, boy? What did you find that's worth killing for?" Rex's tail wagged once, as if to say he'd been asking himself to be taken back to show more. Jake spent the morning going through the laptop Sarah had left in the cabin. It was loaded with encrypted files, Sarah's investigation notes, dating back 8 months. He read through them methodically, Rex lying at his feet, occasionally getting up to check the windows before returning to his guard position. What Jake found made his stomach turn. Sarah had documented 43 cases over the past 3 years where evidence had mysteriously disappeared, been contaminated, or been declared inadmissible due to chain of custody issues. 43 cases where criminals had walked free because the evidence against them had fallen apart. But it wasn't random. Every single case had one thing in common. Captain Richard Wagner had personally signed off on the evidence handling. Drugs worth millions of dollars, marked as destroyed but never actually incinerated. Weapons from major busts, listed as sent to the state forensics lab but never arriving. Cash seized in raids, counted and logged, then somehow coming up short during audits, always with explanations, always with Wagner's signature approving the discrepancies. Sarah had tracked it all, built spreadsheets, created timelines, mapped connections. But what she didn't have was the physical evidence. Without proof that the missing items actually existed somewhere other than police records, it was just suspicious paperwork. until Jake and Rex found the warehouse room. Jake pulled up the video he'd recorded on his phone before uploading it to the cloud, watched Rex's perfect alert signal, the hidden door opening, shelves full of evidence bags with official police tags. He paused the video, zoomed in on individual bags, read the case numbers. Then he cross-referenced those numbers with Sarah's spreadsheet. Perfect match. Every bag visible in his video corresponded to a case Sarah had flagged as suspicious. Cases where evidence had been declared destroyed, contaminated, or lost. It wasn't lost. It was in a warehouse waiting to be sold. Jake was so focused on the laptop that he almost missed Rex's warning. The German Shepherd went from relaxed to alert in an instant, ears forward, body rigid, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Someone was outside. Jake closed the laptop, moved to the window, careful to stay in the shadows. Through the trees, he could see a vehicle on the access road. Not a police car, but a dark SUV with tinted windows. It slowed as it passed the cabin's driveway, then continued on. Probably nothing. Just someone using the rural road. But Rex remained tense, nose working the air coming through the cabin's poor insulation, and Jake had learned to trust the dog's instincts over his own rationalization. "You smell something, boy?" Rex whined, shifted his weight, looked at Jake, then back at the door. The message was clear. Potential threat, be ready. Jake grabbed the burner phone, texted Sarah, "Possible suspicious vehicle near cabin, dark SUV, continuing to monitor." Her response came 30 seconds later. "Stay hidden. Could be nothing. Could be Wagner's people checking properties off-grid. Do not engage." 2 hours passed. The SUV didn't return, but Rex remained on alert, refusing to fully relax. Jake tried to go back to reviewing Sarah's files, but his concentration was shot. Every sound outside made his pulse spike. Every bird call could be a signal. Every branch snap could be footsteps. This was what it felt like to be hunted. His father had felt this, Jake realized. In the weeks before his death, his dad had been jumpy, paranoid, constantly looking over his shoulder. Jake had been 16, caught up in his own teenage world, and had barely noticed. His mother had noticed, though. She'd begged his father to drop whatever investigation he was working on, said it wasn't worth his life. His father had refused. "Some things are bigger than one person's safety," he'd told her. Jake had overheard the argument through his bedroom wall. If good cops don't stand up to bad cops, then what's the point of any of it? 3 days later, he was dead. Shot during what was officially ruled a robbery attempt, though his wallet and badge were still on him when they found the body. The case was never solved. The investigation went cold. And Captain Richard Wagner was promoted to head of Evidence Division. Jake had never made the connection before. Why would he? Wagner had seemed genuinely sympathetic at the funeral, had personally made sure Jake's mother received full benefits, had even written a letter of recommendation when Jake applied to the academy years later. Now Jake understood. Wagner had been covering his tracks, making sure the dead cop's family was taken care of, ensuring they had no reason to ask difficult questions. It had worked for 16 years. The burner phone rang, pulling Jake from dark thoughts. "I'm in the evidence vault." Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. "Jake, it's worse than we thought. I'm looking at inventory records going back 12 years. There are hundreds of discrepancies, maybe thousands. Can you document it?" "I'm taking photos, but I have to be careful. There are cameras and Wagner reviews the footage personally. I can only be in here so long before it looks suspicious." The sound of papers rustling came through the phone. "Wait. Jake, I found something. There's a log book, handwritten, that doesn't match the digital records. It's hidden in a file cabinet marked Archives. I think it's the real inventory, the one showing what was actually taken versus what was officially recorded. That's evidence of the conspiracy. It's more than that. There are initials next to each entry, RW, that's Wagner. But there are others, DK, LR, MV, at least 6 different people involved in moving evidence in and out. DK. Dave Kowalski, the young officer who worshipped Wagner and was now leading the hunt for Jake. Dave's in on it? Looks like it. The entries with his initials start about 2 years ago, right after he made officer. Wagner's been grooming him. More rustling. LR. That might be Linda Rodriguez. She's a civilian evidence technician, been here for 15 years. If Wagner needed inside help with the actual evidence handling, she'd be perfect. Photograph everything you can. I am. But Jake, someone's coming. I have to... The line went dead. Jake stared at the phone, heart pounding. He tried calling back. No answer. Tried again. Nothing. Rex sensed his panic, moved close, pressed against his leg in comfort. Jake's hand automatically went to the dog's head, the familiar texture of Rex's fur grounding him. Sarah knew what she was doing. She was smart, careful, experienced. She'd be fine. But the minutes ticked by with no callback, and Jake's imagination filled the silence with worst-case scenarios. Wagner finding her in the vault, her cover blown. Another cop about to die for investigating the truth. 20 minutes later, the phone finally rang. I'm okay, Sarah said immediately. It was just another detective looking for evidence on his case. But Jake, I had to put the logbook back. I only got photos of about 30 pages before I was interrupted. Is it enough? It's a start. But we need more. We need testimony from someone on the inside, someone who can confirm what the logbook means and how the operation worked. She paused. I think Linda Rodriguez might be that person. You said her initials are in the book. She's part of it. She's complicit, yes. But Jake, I've worked with Linda for years. She's not a criminal. She's a single mother, works 2 jobs to support her kids, never causes problems. If Wagner brought her into this, it was probably through pressure or manipulation. She might be willing to flip if we approach her right. Approach her how? I'm a fugitive. You're undercover investigating your own captain. We can't exactly walk up and ask her to commit career suicide. No, but we can offer her a way out. Immunity in exchange for testimony. But I'd need to bring in someone from outside the department. Someone Wagner doesn't control. Who? FBI. I have a contact, Agent Rebecca Morris. She works public corruption cases. If I bring her evidence of a systematic evidence tampering operation, she'll move fast. Jake processed this. Going to the FBI meant escalating, meant there was no turning back. It also meant admitting that local police couldn't clean their own house. But hadn't his father learned that lesson the hard way? Do it, Jake said. Contact the FBI. Get them involved before Wagner can do more damage. It'll take time. At least a day, maybe 2, to set up a meeting and get Morris to review what we have. Can you stay hidden that long? Jake looked around the cabin, at the dwindling supplies, at Rex watching him with patient trust. We'll manage. Just work fast, Sarah. Wagner knows I found his warehouse. He's going to move that evidence, clean up his operation, destroy anything that connects him. I know, which is why tonight I'm going back to that warehouse. I'm going to document everything you found, get my own photos and video. The more evidence we have from multiple sources, the harder it is for Wagner to claim fabrication. Sarah, that's too dangerous. So is everything else we're doing. Jake, you risked your career and your life refusing to kill Rex. The least I can do is take some photos in a warehouse. Her voice softened. Your dad was my mentor, did you know that? When I was a rookie, fresh out of the academy, he taught me what it meant to be a real cop. Not just follow orders, but think, question, stand up for what's right even when it's hard. He died before I could tell him how much that meant. Jake's throat tightened. I didn't know you worked with him. Only for 6 months, right before he died. But it was enough. He talked about you all the time, Jake. How proud he was that you were going to college, staying out of trouble, making something of yourself. He wanted better for you than this job. He said the department was broken, that good cops got punished for being good. He was right. Yeah, he was. Sarah's voice hardened with resolve. So let's finish what he started. Let's expose Wagner and everyone protecting him. Let's prove that even when the system is corrupt, individual people can still choose integrity. Be careful tonight. You too. Keep Rex close. And Jake, if something happens to me, if I don't check in by tomorrow morning, take everything I've gathered and get it to the FBI yourself. Promise me. I promise. The call ended, and Jake was left with the weight of it all. His father's death, Wagner's corruption, Sarah risking everything, Rex sitting calmly beside him, unaware that his perfect performance of duty had triggered a war within the police department itself. The afternoon dragged. Jake rationed the food supplies, giving Rex a proper meal while he ate protein bars and tried to make coffee from the cabin's ancient machine. He reviewed Sarah's files again, memorized names and case numbers, built a mental map of the conspiracy. 6 people, at minimum. Wagner at the top, orchestrating everything. Dave Kowalski as muscle and loyal soldier. Linda Rodriguez handling the actual evidence manipulation. MV, Marcus Vitale, Jake discovered through online searches, a known criminal middleman with connections to organized crime. The evidence wasn't being destroyed, it was being sold back to criminals or to the highest bidder. And 2 other sets of initials Jake couldn't identify, TC and JB. Officers, administrators, someone in the DA's office. The operation was massive, sophisticated, and had been running for over a decade. Millions of dollars in drugs, weapons, and cash had been stolen from the evidence vault and funneled back into criminal hands. Cases had collapsed, criminals had walked free, and justice had been for sale. And when Jake's father had gotten close to exposing it, he'd been killed. Rex suddenly stood, ears forward, that low growl starting again. Jake moved to the window, saw the same dark SUV from earlier, this time parked at the end of the driveway. No one got out. The vehicle just sat there, engine running, tinted windows revealing nothing. Jake's hand went to his belt, to where his service weapon should have been, and found nothing. He was unarmed, trapped in a cabin with one exit, and someone was outside watching. "Easy, Rex," he whispered, though his own heart was racing. The SUV sat there for 5 minutes that felt like 5 hours. Then, slowly, it backed out of the driveway and disappeared down the road. Message received. "We know where you are." Jake immediately called Sarah. No answer. Tried again. Nothing. She was at the warehouse, in the field, probably with her phone silenced, completely unaware that Wagner's people had located the cabin and were sending a very clear signal. Jake made a decision. Staying here was no longer safe. Sarah had said to hide, but hiding only worked if the enemy didn't know where to find you. They'd been compromised, which meant the cabin was now a trap. He packed quickly. Laptop, files, burner phones, what little food remained. Rex watched with interest, tail wagging slightly. To the dog, packing meant they were going somewhere, and anywhere with Jake was fine. "We're leaving, boy. New plan." Jake loaded everything into the old pickup truck parked behind the cabin. Sarah had mentioned it was there, keys under the floor mat. The truck was registered to a shell company, untraceable to Sarah, and would buy them some mobility. But where to go? The answer came from an unlikely source, a memory of his father teaching teenage Jake about police work. "If you ever need to hide something important," his dad had said, "hide it in plain sight. People look for things out of place. They miss what belongs." The most out-of-place thing in the city right now was Jake Morrison. Everyone was looking for a rogue cop hiding in the shadows. So Jake drove toward the one place no one would think to look. The Police Memorial Park. It was a small green space downtown, dedicated to officers killed in the line of duty. Jake's father's name was on the monument there, etched in stone along with 43 others. The park was public, well-lit, frequently patrolled, and the last place a fugitive would hide, which made it perfect. Jake parked 3 blocks away in a public garage and walked to the park with Rex at a casual heel. To anyone watching, they looked like an off-duty cop and his K9 taking a walk. Jake had changed into civilian clothes from the cabin, wore a baseball cap low over his face, and kept Rex close. The park was quiet at dusk, just a few joggers and one older woman feeding pigeons. Jake sat on a bench facing the memorial, Rex settling at his feet, and pulled out a burner phone. He called a number he'd found in Sarah's files, Detective Michael Torres, his father's old partner. Torres. Detective, this is Jake Morrison. Don't hang up. Silence. Then, you're wanted for threatening officers and fleeing with a dangerous animal. I'm wanted because I refused an illegal order to execute my K9 partner after he found evidence of Captain Wagner's corruption. My father investigated the same corruption 16 years ago, and then he died. I think you know more about that than you've ever said. More silence. Jake could hear breathing, could almost feel the internal struggle happening on the other end of the line. I can't help you, Jake. Can't or won't. There's no difference. Not when it comes to Wagner. He killed my dad, didn't he? My father found out about the evidence tampering and Wagner had him killed. I don't know that. I never had proof. But you suspected. Torres's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Your father called me the night before he died. Said he'd found something big, something that went to the top of the department. He was going to meet with Internal Affairs the next morning. He never made it. Wagner's in IA's pocket too? Wagner has people everywhere, Jake. That's how he survived this long. He's not just stealing evidence, he's buying loyalty, creating a network of officers who owe him favors or are too compromised to speak up. Your father threatened all of that. So they killed him and called it a robbery. I couldn't prove otherwise. I tried, Jake. I spent 2 years investigating on my own, and all I got was a forced early retirement and a warning that accidents happen to cops who don't know when to stop. Jake looked at the memorial, at his father's name carved in stone. Gregory Morrison. Badge 4127. Killed in the line of duty. Except he wasn't killed in the line of duty. He was killed for doing his duty. I have evidence, Jake said quietly. Video of a warehouse full of stolen evidence from the vault. Documentation of hundreds of discrepancies. Proof of Wagner's operation. But I need help getting it to people who will actually do something about it. The FBI? Yeah. Torres was quiet for a long moment. Jake, if you go after Wagner with this, you understand there's no going back? Even if you're right, even if you have proof, they'll destroy you. Your career, your reputation, everything. The system protects itself. The system protected itself when it let my father's killers go free. I'm done protecting the system. I'm protecting the truth. Like father, like son. Torres sighed. What do you need from me? Tell me what my dad found. Tell me what got him killed. He found the logbook, the real one, showing what evidence was actually taken versus what was reported. He made copies, hid them somewhere I never found. He was going to use them to prove systematic theft going back years. Torres paused. He told me that if anything happened to him, I should look for the documentation in the place that mattered most to him. I searched everywhere, Jake. Your house, his desk, his locker, never found it. The place that mattered most to him. Jake looked at the memorial again, at his father's name, and suddenly understood. I know where it is. Where? I'll call you back. Jake ended the call and stood, Rex immediately coming to attention. The memorial was a wall of black granite, 6 feet tall, with names etched chronologically. Gregory Morrison's name was in the 3rd row, 7 names from the left. Jake approached the memorial, ran his fingers over his father's name, then looked at the base of the wall. There was landscaping around it, decorative stones and small shrubs. On the section directly below his father's name, one of the decorative stones looked slightly different, same color, same size, but sitting just slightly higher than the others. Jake knelt, pretended to be paying respects while Rex sat beside him. His fingers found the edge of the stone, lifted it slightly. Underneath, wrapped in waterproof plastic, was a small package. 16 years it had been there. 16 years his father's evidence had waited for someone to look in the right place. Jake palmed the package, replaced the stone, stood and walked calmly away from the memorial with Rex at his side. No one watching would have seen anything unusual, just a man honoring a fallen officer. Back at the truck, Jake opened the package with shaking hands. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note in his father's familiar scrawl. "If you're reading this, I'm probably dead." The evidence on this drive proves Captain Wagner has been stealing from the evidence vault for years and selling it back to criminals. I have testimony from Linda Rodriguez, the evidence tech he forced into helping him. I have financial records showing payoffs to at least 6 officers. I have everything needed to bring him down. But I also know that Wagner has protectors, people who will bury this rather than let it come out. So I'm hiding this in the one place I know someone will eventually look, at my own memorial if it comes to that. To whoever finds this, finish what I started. Don't let Wagner win. Don't let corruption become the norm. And if you're reading this, Jake, I'm sorry. I wanted better for you than this broken system. But I also taught you to stand up for what's right. I trust you'll do what needs to be done. I love you, son. Be brave. Dad. Jake read the note twice, vision blurring with tears he'd held back for 16 years. Rex whined softly, pressed against his leg, offering comfort. "He knew," Jake whispered. "He knew they'd kill him, and he did it anyway." The burner phone rang. Sarah. "Jake, where are you? I went by the cabin and saw signs someone had been watching it. Are you safe?" "I'm safe. And Sarah, I found my father's evidence. Everything we need to prove Wagner's been running this operation for over a decade. Financial records, testimony, documentation. It's all here." "Where?" "My dad hid it at the police memorial under his name on the wall. He knew someone would eventually look there." Sarah's breath caught. "Jake, that's everything. With what I photographed at the warehouse tonight and what your dad collected, we can prove a pattern going back years. We can tie Wagner directly to evidence theft, to payoffs, to the whole conspiracy." "But my dad had testimony from Linda Rodriguez 16 years ago. If she was involved back then and she's still involved now, she's been part of this the whole time. Or she's been trapped in it, unable to get out. Jake, we need to approach her carefully. She's our best chance at getting inside testimony, but if Wagner finds out we're talking to her, he'll kill her like he killed my dad." "Exactly. So we move smart. I'm meeting with Agent Morris tomorrow morning." "I'll bring her everything. My files, your video, your dad's USB drive. The FBI will take it from there. They'll offer Linda immunity, put her in protective custody, and use her testimony to build a case. Wagner won't know what hit him until it's too late." Jake looked at the USB drive, at his father's handwriting, at the evidence that had waited 16 years for justice. "Make sure Morris understands what we're dealing with. Wagner's not just corrupt, he's dangerous. He's killed to protect this operation, and he'll kill again." "I know, which is why you need to stay hidden until this is over. No heroics, Jake. Just stay alive, keep Rex safe, and let the FBI do their job." "Where should I go? The cabin's compromised." "There's a motel about 60 miles east, off Route 40, the Pineview Motor Lodge. Pay cash, use a fake name, keep Rex in the room. It's not fancy, but it's anonymous. Can you make it there?" "Yeah." "Good. I'll call you after I meet with Morris." With any luck, we'll have federal agents executing warrants on Wagner by tomorrow afternoon. The call ended, and Jake sat in the truck with Rex in the passenger seat, his father's evidence in his hands, and the weight of 16 years of injustice finally about to be lifted. "We did it, boy," he said to Rex. "We found what Dad hid. We're going to finish what he started." Rex's tail wagged, the dog's dark brown eyes bright with trust and affection. Jake started the truck and drove east toward a cheap motel and the hope that tomorrow would bring justice for his father, vindication for himself, and the end of Wagner's reign of corruption. Behind them, the city lights faded into darkness. Ahead, somewhere in that darkness, Wagner was realizing that his perfect operation was about to collapse. The hunter was about to become the hunted, and Jake Morrison, fugitive cop, was going to make sure that this time, the good guys won. The Pineview Motor Lodge was exactly as Sarah had described, a relic from the 1970s, all faded turquoise paint and flickering neon sign promising color TV and air conditioning, like they were luxuries. Jake paid cash to a disinterested clerk who never looked up from his phone, signed the register as John Smith with a fake address, and took the key to room 117. Rex trotted inside ahead of him, immediately conducting a security sweep of the small space, sniffing the corners, checking under the bed, examining the bathroom. The German Shepherd's thoroughness would have been amusing under other circumstances. Now it was just reassuring. At least one of them was thinking tactically. Jake locked the door, fastened the chain, and wedged a chair under the handle. Then he closed the heavy curtains, checking twice to make sure there were no gaps. The room smelled like cigarette smoke and industrial cleaner, and the carpet had stains Jake preferred not to think about, but it was anonymous and off the grid. That was all that mattered. Rex settled on the floor beside the bed, positioned so he could watch both the door and Jake simultaneously. The dog's eyes tracked Jake's movements as he pulled out the laptop and his father's USB drive. "You want to see what Dad found, boy?" Jake asked quietly, plugging in the drive. Rex's ears perked at the tone, but he remained in his alert rest position, conserving energy while maintaining readiness. 4 years of partnership had taught Jake that Rex understood more than most people gave him credit for. The dog knew they were hiding from something dangerous. He knew Jake was stressed, and he knew his job was to be ready for whatever came next. The USB drive opened with a simple password: Jake's birthday. His father had known, even 16 years ago, that if anyone would eventually find this evidence and have the courage to use it, it would be his son. The files were meticulously organized. Financial records showing wire transfers from offshore accounts to officers' personal accounts. Photographs of Wagner meeting with known criminals in parking garages and abandoned buildings. Recorded phone conversations where Wagner discussed pricing for returning confiscated drugs and weapons to their original owners. Spreadsheets documenting every piece of evidence that had been lost, destroyed, or contaminated over a 3-year period. And at the center of it all, a video-recorded testimony from Linda Rodriguez, looking 15 years younger but with the same tired eyes. Jake clicked play. Linda sat in what looked like Jake's childhood home. He recognized the wallpaper in his father's study behind her. She was nervous, hands clasped tightly in her lap, eyes red from crying. "My name is Linda Rodriguez," she began, voice shaking. "I'm a civilian evidence technician with the Metro City Police Department. I've worked there for 3 years. And for the last 18 months, I've been helping Captain Richard Wagner steal evidence from the vault." Jake's father's voice came from off-camera, gentle and encouraging. "Linda, no one's going to see this unless something happens to me. You're safe here. Just tell the truth." Linda nodded, took a breath. "It started small. Wagner asked me to misfile some paperwork, said it was just to simplify a case report. I didn't think much of it. But then he asked me to mark evidence as destroyed when it wasn't. Then to swap contents of evidence bags. Then to just take things out of the vault and give them to him. And if you refused? He said my kids would end up in foster care. Said he knew things about my ex-husband, could make sure I lost custody. I'm a single mother, Detective Morrison. My children are everything. So I did what he asked." "What happened to the evidence you removed?" "Wagner took it. I don't know where. But I saw him meeting with people, bad people, in the parking garage. I saw money change hands. He's selling it back to criminals. Drugs, weapons, everything we take off the streets, he's putting it right back." "How many officers are involved?" I know of at least 4 others who help move evidence or look the other way. There might be more. Wagner's careful about compartmentalizing. No one knows the whole operation except him. Jake's father asked a few more questions, established dates and specific cases. Then the video ended with a promise. I'm going to stop him, Linda. I'm going to make sure you and your kids are safe, and I'm going to bring Wagner down. But he hadn't gotten the chance. He died the next day, and Linda Rodriguez had been trapped in Wagner's operation for 16 more years. Jake closed the laptop, feeling the weight of it. His father had protected Linda, had hidden her testimony rather than use it and put her at risk. He'd planned to build the case, get federal protection for her, and only then expose Wagner. He'd been killed before he could execute the plan. Now, 16 years later, Jake was in the exact same position, with evidence that could destroy Wagner, but knowing that using it would put Linda Rodriguez directly in the crosshairs. The burner phone rang at 6:47 a.m. Sarah, her voice tight with barely contained excitement. Jake, I just left the FBI field office. Agent Morris is in. She's all in. Jake sat up, Rex immediately alert at the change in energy. She believed us? She's been investigating rumors of evidence tampering in Metro PD for 2 years, but couldn't get anyone to talk. What we gave her, your video, my documentation, your father's files, it's everything she needed. She's bringing in a team, getting federal warrants, and moving fast. How fast? 48 hours, maybe less. She wants to get Linda Rodriguez into protective custody before executing the warrants on Wagner. If Linda testifies, corroborates the evidence, Wagner won't be able to claim fabrication or misunderstanding. It'll be airtight. Jake stood, started pacing the small motel room. Linda's been part of this for 16 years, Sarah. Wagner's had plenty of time to ensure her loyalty or her silence. What makes you think she'll flip? Because Agent Morris is offering full immunity, witness protection for her and her kids, and a chance to finally stop being complicit in something that's been eating at her for nearly 2 decades. Sarah paused. I saw your dad's video of her testimony, Jake. That woman has been waiting for someone to save her from this nightmare. We're giving her that chance. When does Morris approach her? Today, this afternoon. Linda's scheduled to work a shift starting at 2 p.m. Morris is going to intercept her in the parking garage before she enters the building, make the offer, and get her out immediately if she agrees. And if she doesn't agree? If she's too scared, or if Wagner's gotten to her, convinced her she's in too deep, then Morris uses the evidence we already have. It won't be as strong without Linda's testimony, but your father's recordings, the financial records, the video you took, it's still prosecutable. Wagner will still go down. Jake looked at Rex, who was watching him with those steady, intelligent eyes. What about me? Am I still a fugitive? Officially, yes. Morris says she can't do anything about the local warrant until after Wagner's arrested. If she tips her hand by clearing you too early, Wagner will know something's coming. But she promises that the moment federal agents move on Wagner, she'll have you brought in under protective custody, not arrest. You'll give your statement, hand over your evidence, and the local charges will be dismissed. So I wait. You wait. Keep your head down, stay at that motel, don't do anything to draw attention, let the FBI work, let justice happen through proper channels. Jake wanted to believe it was that simple. But he'd been a cop long enough to know that nothing involving Wagner was ever simple. Sarah, be careful. If Wagner suspects the FBI's involved, if he thinks we've gone outside the department, he'll panic and try to destroy evidence or eliminate witnesses. I know. Which is why Morris is moving fast and quiet. No one at Metro PD knows the FBI is investigating. As far as Wagner knows, you're still just a rogue cop on the run, and I'm just doing my job. He sent people to watch the cabin. He knows we're working together. He suspects. But suspicion isn't proof. I've been careful, Jake. Every move I've made has been defensible as routine investigation work. Wagner can't touch me without revealing his own paranoia. Jake hoped she was right. Call me after Morris talks to Linda. I need to know if she's safe. I will. And Jake? Your dad would be proud of you. You're finishing what he started. The call ended, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts and his partner. Rex had moved to sit directly in front of him, close enough that Jake could rest his hand on the dog's head. 48 hours, Jake told him. We just have to stay hidden for 48 more hours and this whole thing is over. Wagner goes down, we're cleared, and everything goes back to normal. But even as he said it, Jake knew nothing would ever be normal again. He'd crossed a line, defied a direct order, gone on the run from his own department. Even when cleared of wrongdoing, even when Wagner was exposed and arrested, Jake would always be the cop who'd chosen his dog over orders. Some officers would respect that. Others would see it as the ultimate betrayal. The morning dragged. Jake tried to rest, knowing he'd barely slept in 2 days, but his mind wouldn't shut off. He kept reviewing the evidence, looking for holes Wagner's lawyers might exploit. He kept thinking about Linda Rodriguez, hoping she'd be brave enough to testify. He kept watching the door, waiting for it to burst open with officers ready to shoot first and ask questions later. Rex, by contrast, seemed perfectly content. The dog napped in patches of sunlight that leaked through the curtain gaps, occasionally getting up to drink water or check the door, then returning to rest. To Rex, they were just spending time together in a new location. As long as Jake was there, everything was fine. At 1:47 p.m., Jake's burner phone rang. Unknown number. Jake Morrison? Who's asking? Agent Rebecca Morris, FBI. Sarah Chen gave me this number. I wanted to touch base before I approach Linda Rodriguez. Are you somewhere secure? As secure as I can be. Good. I've reviewed all the evidence you and Detective Chen provided. It's compelling, comprehensive, and more than sufficient for federal prosecution. But I want you to understand what's about to happen. Jake sat up straighter. I'm listening. In approximately 15 minutes, I'm going to intercept Linda Rodriguez in the parking garage of the Metro City Police Department. I'm going to offer her full immunity in exchange for testimony against Wagner and anyone else involved in the evidence tampering conspiracy. If she accepts, she and her children will be taken into immediate protective custody. If she refuses, I'll still be executing warrants on Wagner within 24 hours, but the case will be weaker. You think she'll cooperate? I think she's been trapped in this operation for 16 years, forced to participate through threats and coercion. Your father's video shows a woman who wanted out even back then. I'm betting she still wants out. And if Wagner finds out you're talking to her? He won't. We're moving fast and clean. By the time Wagner realizes something's happening, Linda will already be secure and the warrants will be executed. Morris paused. But I need you to stay out of sight, Mr. Morrison. Don't try to be a hero, don't try to help. Just stay where you are and let us handle this. I'm not going anywhere. Good. I'll have Detective Chen update you after we have Linda secured. Until then, sit tight. The call ended. Jake checked the time. 1:51 p.m. In less than 10 minutes, the FBI would make their move. He turned on the laptop, pulled up local police scanners through an encrypted connection Sarah had set up. The scanner was mostly routine traffic, patrol units checking in, responding to minor calls, the normal rhythm of a Thursday afternoon. 2:03 p.m. Morris should be approaching Linda now. The scanner remained quiet. 2:07 p.m. Linda should be in FBI custody, or at least in conversation with Morris about the offer. Still nothing unusual on the scanner. 2:15 p.m. They should be moving Linda out, taking her to a secure location. Jake's phone rang. Sarah, her voice tight with stress. Something's wrong. Jake's stomach dropped. What happened? Linda Rodriguez didn't show up for her shift. She called in sick this morning, said she had a family emergency. Morris went to her house. She's gone, Jake. Her and both kids. Packed bags, no note, just gone. Wagner got to her. We don't know that. Maybe she just took her kids on a trip. Maybe she sensed something was coming and ran. Or maybe Wagner realized we were closing in and eliminated his biggest liability. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Morris is trying to track her down. She's got agents checking Linda's credit cards, phone records, known associates. But if Wagner took her, then she's either dead or he's using her as leverage. Jake was already moving, grabbing his jacket, his father's USB drive. Rex stood immediately, sensing the urgency. "Jake, what are you doing?" "I'm not sitting in a motel while Wagner kills another witness. My dad died trying to protect Linda Rodriguez. I'm not letting her die 16 years later for the same reason." "Morris said to stay put." "Morris doesn't know Wagner like we do. He's not going to wait for warrants to be executed. He's going to clean house, destroy evidence, eliminate anyone who can testify against him. That means Linda, that means anyone else involved who might flip, and that means us if he finds us." "So what's your plan?" Jake was already out the door, Rex at his heel, moving toward the truck. "Wagner keeps his evidence in that warehouse. If he's panicking, if he's cleaning up, that's where he'll go. That's where Linda might be." "You're going to the warehouse?" "Jake, that's insane. If Wagner's there, if his people are there, then I'll call it in, get backup, and make sure the FBI catches him in the act of destroying evidence." Jake started the truck, Rex jumping into the passenger seat. "This is the best chance we'll have to catch him doing something obviously illegal." "Morris can't get warrants for the warehouse without probable cause. I'm going to give her probable cause. By walking into a trap? By doing what cops are supposed to do, investigating crimes and protecting witnesses." Jake pulled out of the motel parking lot, heading back toward the city. "I'm texting you my location. If I don't check in every 30 minutes, send Morris to the warehouse with everything. Jake, please. Sarah, I can't sit still while people die. I just can't." "It's not who I am." He ended the call before she could argue further and drove toward the city with Rex alert beside him. The warehouse district looked different in daylight, less ominous, more pathetic. The cathedral warehouse, where Jake had first found the hidden room, stood silent, windows reflecting the afternoon sun like dead eyes. Jake parked 3 blocks away, in a position where he could watch the warehouse entrance without being obvious. He settled in to wait, one hand resting on Rex's head, the other holding a burner phone ready to call Morris the moment he saw anything worth reporting. 20 minutes passed. Nothing. 40 minutes. Still quiet. Jake was beginning to think he'd made a mistake, that Wagner was too smart to come here in person, when a black SUV pulled up to the warehouse's service entrance. The same SUV that had been watching Sarah's cabin. 4 men got out, none in police uniform, all carrying themselves with the bearing of people used to violence. Jake recognized one of them, Dave Kowalski, the young officer who'd been leading the search for Jake. Except Dave wasn't in uniform either, and the weapon he carried wasn't department-issued. They moved into the warehouse with purpose, clearly familiar with the layout. Jake's phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. "Morris says Linda's credit card just got flagged. Gas station purchase 20 minutes ago, 3 blocks from the warehouse district. She's there, Jake." Jake's blood ran cold. Linda hadn't run. She'd been brought here, and now Wagner's people were inside with her. He called Sarah. "I need you to get Morris here now. Wagner's cleaning house. Linda's here, Dave Kowalski, and at least 3 others are inside, and they're not here for a social call." "Jake, do not go in there." "I'm not, but I'm not leaving either. Get me back up." He ended the call, watching the warehouse. Every tactical instinct screamed at him to wait for proper backup. But he also knew that whatever was happening inside, Linda Rodriguez didn't have time to wait. Rex was watching him, ears forward, body tense, reading Jake's internal debate. "I know what you're thinking," Jake said quietly. "You're thinking I'm about to do something stupid, and you're right. But that woman in there, she tried to get out 16 years ago, and my dad died before he could save her. I'm not letting her die now." He checked the truck's glove compartment, found an old tire iron. Not much of a weapon against armed men, but better than nothing. Then he looked at Rex. "Here's the deal, partner. We're going to do reconnaissance only. Get close, see what's happening, document it for the FBI. No heroics, no confrontations, just eyes on target. Can you do that? Rex's tail wagged once, his version of affirmative. Good. Quiet approach. Alert only if you detect immediate threat. Heal. They moved through the industrial landscape using abandoned equipment and buildings as cover. Rex was perfect, silent and low, moving with the precision of his training. Jake had forgotten how good the dog was at tactical approaches. In the routine of daily patrol, it was easy to forget Rex had been trained for exactly this kind of situation. They reached a broken window on the warehouse's east side, low enough that Jake could see inside without being obvious. The interior was dim, but Jake's eyes adjusted quickly. He saw Linda Rodriguez. She was tied to a chair in the center of the open space, face bruised, clothes torn, clearly beaten. Her two children, Jake hadn't known she had kids with her, were huddled together nearby, also bound, crying silently. Dave Kowalski stood in front of Linda, phone to his ear, clearly talking to someone. Even from this distance, Jake could read his body language. He was nervous, uncertain, waiting for instructions. Then another figure emerged from the shadows, and Jake's hands clenched on the tire iron. Captain Richard Wagner. The captain was dressed in civilian clothes, carrying a gun, moving with the confidence of a man who believed he controlled everything. He said something to Dave, who nodded and holstered his own weapon. Wagner approached Linda, crouched in front of her, spoke quietly. Jake couldn't hear the words, but he saw Linda's reaction, shaking her head, defiant, even beaten and bound. Wagner stood, pulled out his phone, and made a call. Jake's burner phone rang. For a moment, confusion froze him. Then understanding hit like ice water. Wagner was calling him. Wagner had his burner number, which meant someone on Jake's side had given it to him. The phone rang again. Rex looked at it, then at Jake, questioning. Jake answered, keeping his voice low. Wagner, Morrison, I know you're watching. I know you're close. I can practically smell that dog of yours. Wagner's voice was calm, controlled. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk in here unarmed with your hands up. You're going to bring that evidence your father hid, and you're going to watch me destroy it. Then you're going to take the blame for what happens to Linda Rodriguez and her children. You'd kill kids? I'd do what's necessary to protect my operation. But it doesn't have to come to that. You cooperate, Linda and her kids walk away. You refuse, and their deaths are on you. Jake's mind raced. How did you get this number? You really think Sarah Chen is the only cop I have in my pocket? Wagner laughed. She's been feeding me information since you went dark. Every move you make, every plan you have, I know about it. The FBI investigation, I know about that too. Agent Morris will be finding some very compelling evidence that Linda Rodriguez has been running her own evidence theft operation and framing me. It's all very tragic. Jake's blood ran cold. Sarah had betrayed him. No, that couldn't be right. Sarah had been investigating Wagner for months, had risked everything, unless that was the cover. Unless Sarah was Wagner's inside agent all along, making herself look like an ally while feeding Jake's every move back to the captain. I don't believe you. Then ask yourself how I knew about the cabin, how I knew you'd go to the police memorial, how I knew you'd end up at the Pineview Motor Lodge. Wagner's voice hardened. Chen's good, Morrison. She's been playing you since the beginning. Everything you've found, everything you've documented, it's all going to disappear. The only question is whether Linda's kids disappear with it. Jake looked at Rex, at the dog's trusting brown eyes, and made a decision. I'm coming in. Give me 5 minutes. You have 3. And Morrison, if that dog so much as growls at my men, I'll shoot him myself. The call ended. Jake had 3 minutes to figure out if Wagner was telling the truth about Sarah, to decide if he was walking into a trap, and to find a way to save Linda Rodriguez and her children without getting everyone killed. Rex watched him, waiting for the command, trusting that whatever came next, they'd face it together. Jake checked his phone. One text from Sarah. Morris is 10 minutes out with tactical team. Hold position. 10 minutes. Linda and her kids didn't have 10 minutes. Jake stood, brushed dirt from his pants, and looked at his partner. Change of plans, boy. We're going in. Jake Morrison had been a cop for 8 years. He'd been trained in tactical entry, hostage negotiation, crisis management. He knew the textbook answer to this situation: wait for backup, establish perimeter, negotiate for time, let trained professionals handle it. But the textbook had never mentioned what to do when the person you were supposed to call for backup was the one holding innocents hostage. He had maybe 2 minutes before Wagner's deadline expired, 10 minutes before the FBI arrived, and a lifetime of training telling him that walking unarmed into a room full of armed men was suicide. Rex pressed against his leg, warm and solid, and Jake made his decision. Okay, boy, here's what we're going to do. He pulled out the burner phone, opened the voice recorder app, hit record, and tucked it into Rex's tactical collar. The one Rex had been wearing since they fled. The one with the K9 badge still attached. The phone was small enough to hide in the collar's folds. And if Jake was walking into his own execution, at least there'd be a record. Rex, listen to me. We're going inside. You're going to stay in heel position no matter what happens. No alerts, no aggression, just perfect obedience. Can you do that? Rex's tail wagged once. Affirmative. Good. Because if this goes wrong, that recording in your collar is the only thing that's going to prove what really happened here. You protect that phone, understand? No matter what. Another tail wag. Jake took a breath, steadied himself, and walked toward the warehouse's main entrance with Rex at perfect heel beside him. His hands were raised, empty, visible. Every step felt like walking toward his own grave, but he kept moving. The door was open. Jake stepped inside, eyes adjusting to the dimmer interior. Wagner stood in the center of the space, flanked by Dave Kowalski and 2 other men Jake didn't recognize. Linda Rodriguez was still tied to the chair, her children huddled nearby, all 3 of them watching Jake with desperate hope that made his chest tighten. Smart choice, Morrison. Wagner's voice echoed in the empty warehouse. I knew you couldn't stay away. That hero complex of yours. Same one that got your father killed. Let them go, Wagner. Linda, the kids. They're not part of this. They became part of this the moment Linda decided to talk to your father 16 years ago. Wagner gestured, and Dave Kowalski moved behind Linda's chair, gun now drawn and pointed at her head. She's been a liability ever since. I kept her alive because she was useful, because the threat to her children kept her compliant. But now she's talked to the FBI. Now she's become more trouble than she's worth. Jake kept his hands raised, his voice calm. The FBI already has everything, Wagner. My video, my father's files, Detective Chen's documentation. Killing Linda doesn't make that evidence disappear. Wagner smiled. Doesn't it? Because here's what's actually going to happen. You're going to confess that you fabricated that evidence to frame me out of revenge for your father's death. You're going to admit that you coerced Linda into giving false testimony, and you're going to take full responsibility for this whole situation before you tragically take your own life, overcome with guilt and mental instability. No one will believe that. Everyone will believe it. You're a rogue cop who fled from a lawful order, who's been on the run for days, who's clearly unstable. Sarah Chen has already provided sworn testimony about your erratic behavior and conspiracy theories. The FBI investigation will fall apart once you're not around to push the narrative. Jake's mind raced. Wagner sounded too confident, too certain, which meant either he really did have Sarah compromised or he was bluffing, trying to isolate Jake, make him feel abandoned, break his will to resist. If Sarah was working for you, why would she help me find my father's evidence? Why would she bring in the FBI? Because I told her to. Because having the FBI investigate and find nothing is better than having questions linger. Better to expose the evidence as fabricated, discredit you completely, and close this chapter once and for all. Wagner's gun came up, pointed at Jake's chest. Now, where's your father's USB drive? Safe. Somewhere you'll never find it. Then I'll start with the children. Wagner nodded to one of his men, who grabbed Linda's daughter. Couldn't be more than 8 years old, Jake thought, and pressed a gun to her head. The little girl whimpered, tears streaming down her face. Linda screamed through her gag, thrashing against the restraints. Rex growled, low, barely audible, but Jake felt it. The dog's body going rigid, every muscle tensing, the protective instinct warring with the command to remain passive. Easy, Jake whispered. Hand signal for stay calm. Rex fell silent, but Jake could feel the coiled energy in the dog's frame. Last chance, Morrison. The USB drive, or I start killing children in front of you. Jake's hands were shaking. He had maybe 7 minutes before the FBI arrived. 7 minutes to keep everyone alive, to record Wagner's confession, to find a way out of this that didn't end with dead children. It's in my truck, 3 blocks east. I'll take you there. You think I'm stupid? You'll take me there and hope to run, or hope the FBI shows up, or hope for some miracle. No. Wagner gestured to Dave. Kowalski, go with him. You have 5 minutes to retrieve the drive and get back here. Morrison tries anything, call me and I'll start with the boy. Dave moved forward, grabbed Jake's arm roughly. Move. Jake looked at Rex. The dog was watching him, waiting for commands, trusting completely. Rex, stay. The German shepherd whined, a sound of distress Jake had rarely heard. Rex understood separation, understood wait commands, but this felt different. This felt like abandonment. I'll be back, boy. I promise. Just stay. Dave shoved Jake toward the door. As they left the warehouse, Jake caught a glimpse of Rex sitting at perfect attention, brown eyes locked on the door, every line of his body screaming the desire to follow, but held in place by training and trust. Outside, Dave kept the gun pressed into Jake's ribs. Walk, no sudden moves, no heroics. Dave, you don't have to do this. Wagner's using you. When this falls apart, he'll throw you to the wolves. Shut up. You're what, 29? 30? You've got your whole career ahead of you. Wagner's been stealing evidence for over a decade. You think he won't sacrifice you to save himself? I said shut up. Dave's voice cracked slightly. Young, Jake thought. Ambitious, but inexperienced. Loyal to Wagner because Wagner had groomed him, made him feel important, special. They reached Jake's truck. Jake made a show of unlocking it, moving slowly, buying time. 6 minutes before FBI arrival, if Sarah's estimate had been accurate, if Sarah hadn't betrayed him. Jake reached into the truck, felt under the seat, and his hand closed on something cold and metal. Not the USB drive. He'd left that at the motel, hidden in the room's air conditioning unit. But the tire iron he'd grabbed earlier, now tucked under the seat where Dave couldn't see it. It's in the glove compartment, Jake lied, moving toward the passenger side. Dave followed, gun still trained on him but attention divided as he watched both Jake and the truck. Jake opened the glove compartment, made a show of searching. It should be right. He spun, bringing the tire iron up in a brutal arc. Dave fired, but Jake was already inside the gun's line of aim, and the bullet went wild. The tire iron connected with Dave's wrist, and the gun went flying. Jake followed with an elbow to Dave's face, then swept his legs, putting the younger officer on the ground hard. Dave was well-trained, recovered fast, reached for a backup weapon. Jake didn't give him the chance. He brought the tire iron down on Dave's shoulder, heard something crack, and Dave screamed. Stay down, Jake commanded, voice hard. You're young, you made bad choices, but you can still make a good one. Stay down. Dave clutched his shoulder, face contorted with pain, but nodded. Jake grabbed Dave's gun, checked the chamber, and ran back toward the warehouse. He had maybe 4 minutes now. Wagner would have heard the gunshot, would know something had gone wrong, which meant Linda and her children were about to die. Jake burst through the warehouse entrance, gun up, and found chaos. Rex had attacked. The German Shepherd had one of Wagner's men on the ground, jaws locked on the man's arm, 80 pounds of muscle and fury and training all focused on protecting the innocents Wagner had threatened. The man was screaming, trying to shake Rex off, failing. Wagner himself was behind Linda's chair, gun to her head, using her as a shield. The other thug had grabbed the children, was backing toward a rear exit. "Call off the dog, Morrison, or I'll paint this whole room with her brains." Jake's gun was trained on Wagner, but he couldn't get a clean shot with Linda in the way. "Rex, release!" Rex let go immediately, backed off, but stayed between Wagner and the children, hackles raised, teeth bared, ready to attack again if needed. "I gave you an order," Wagner snarled. "I told you the dog stays calm or I'd shoot him. You also told me I had 3 minutes. I was gone less than 2. You were going to kill them anyway, weren't you? Linda, the kids, all of them. You couldn't risk any witnesses. Smart boy, just like your father, too smart for your own good." Wagner's gun pressed harder against Linda's temple. "Now here's what's actually going to happen. You're going to drop that gun, or I'm going to kill Linda, then the children, then you, then that dog. And it'll all be ruled a justified shooting of a dangerous fugitive and his aggressive K9. Jake's finger was on the trigger, his sights lined up as best they could be with Linda in the way. 1 shot. That's all he'd get. If he missed, if he hit Linda, if Wagner's reflexes were faster, the warehouse's roll-up door exploded inward, and federal agents in tactical gear poured through like a black-clad wave. "FBI, drop your weapons!" Wagner's head snapped toward the entrance, distraction lasting maybe half a second. But it was enough. Jake fired. The bullet caught Wagner in the shoulder, spinning him away from Linda. He stumbled, gun falling from his hand, clutching the wound with shock and pain warring on his face. Rex moved like lightning, crossing the distance to Wagner in 3 bounds, and the German Shepherd's jaws closed on the captain's gun hand before he could reach for a backup weapon. Wagner screamed, went down hard, Rex on top of him, holding him there with the precision of training and the fury of a dog protecting his pack. FBI agents swarmed the space, guns trained on the remaining thugs, orders shouted, positions secured. Jake dropped his weapon, raised his hands, showed he wasn't a threat. Agent Rebecca Morris appeared, weapon drawn but pointed at the ground, taking in the scene with sharp, assessing eyes. "Officer Morrison?" "That's me. You were supposed to stay at the motel." "Yeah, well, I'm not great at following orders." Morris almost smiled, then gestured to her team. "Secure the suspects. Get medical for the woman and children. Morrison, I need your statement." Jake watched as agents freed Linda and her children, as Wagner was cuffed and dragged to his feet, shoulder bleeding, face contorted with rage and disbelief. The captain locked eyes with Jake, and for a moment the mask fell away completely. No charm, no authority, just pure hatred. "This isn't over, Morrison." "Yeah," Jake said quietly. "It is." Wagner was led away, still screaming threats and demands for his lawyer. The other suspects were secured, including the man Rex had taken down, who was nursing a badly mauled arm and looked at the German Shepherd with something like terror. Rex trotted back to Jake, tail wagging, pleased with himself. The dog's muzzle was bloody, Wagner's blood, but his eyes were bright, alert, proud. He'd done his job, protected innocents, stopped bad guys. As far as Rex was concerned, it had been a good day's work. Jake knelt down, ran his hands over Rex, checking for injuries. "You okay, boy?" Rex licked his face, tail wagging harder. "You disobeyed my direct order. I said stay calm, no aggression." More tail wagging. "Good dog. Best damn dog in the world." Agent Morris approached, holstering her weapon. "Officer Morrison, we need to talk about what happened here." I recorded everything. Jake pulled the burner phone from Rex's collar, showed Morris. Wagner's confession, his threats to Linda and her children, all of it. It's all here. Morris took the phone carefully like it was made of gold. This is exactly what we need. Between this and the evidence you already provided, Wagner's done. Finished. What about Detective Chen? Wagner said she was working for him, feeding him information. Morris shook her head. Sarah Chen has been our confidential informant for the past 4 months. Everything she told you was coordinated with our office. Wagner was trying to isolate you, make you think you had no allies. Classic interrogation tactic. Relief flooded through Jake. Sarah hadn't betrayed him. The texts, the calls, the support, all of it had been real. Where is she now? Coordinating raids on Wagner's other properties and associates. We're executing 17 warrants simultaneously. By tonight, Wagner's entire operation will be dismantled. Morris paused. You took a hell of a risk, Officer Morrison, coming here alone, confronting armed suspects without backup. I wasn't alone. Jake's hand rested on Rex's head. I had my partner. Morris looked at the German shepherd, who sat at perfect attention, professional despite the blood on his muzzle. The dog that started all of this. The one Wagner ordered you to execute. Rex. His name is Rex. Well, Rex just helped take down one of the most significant corruption cases in the city's history. Morris crouched, held out her hand. Rex sniffed it, decided she was acceptable, and allowed her to scratch behind his ears. You're a good boy, aren't you? Rex's tail wagged in agreement. EMTs were tending to Linda and her children. Jake approached, keeping Rex at his side. Linda looked up, eyes red from crying, face bruised but alive. You came for us, she said, voice hoarse. After everything, after all these years, someone finally came. My father tried to save you 16 years ago. I'm sorry it took me so long to finish what he started. Your father was a good man. He promised me he'd stop Wagner, that I'd be safe. When he died, I thought I'd be trapped forever. You're free now. You and your kids. Wagner can't touch you anymore. Linda broke down, sobbing with relief and release. Her children clung to her, all 3 of them alive against the odds, saved by a cop who wouldn't follow illegal orders and a dog who'd found truth when everyone else wanted it buried. Morris returned to Jake's side. We'll need you to come to the field office, give a full statement, hand over all evidence. But Officer Morrison, the local charges against you? Fleeing from a lawful order, taking department property, the rest of it? I'll be recommending to the DA that everything be dropped. What you did here, what you uncovered, you're a hero, not a criminal. I just did what any cop should do, refused to kill my partner and investigated a crime. You did what your father would have done. And you survived where he didn't. Morris stood. Come on. Let's get you and Rex somewhere safe, get your statements, and start building the case that's going to put Wagner away for the rest of his life. As Jake walked toward the FBI vehicles, Rex at his heel, he saw Sarah Chen pulling up in an unmarked car. She jumped out, ran toward him, and pulled him into a brief, fierce hug. You idiot, she said, voice thick with emotion. You magnificent, reckless, heroic idiot. When Morris said you'd gone to the warehouse, I thought, Wagner told me you were working for him, that you'd betrayed me. And you came anyway? I didn't believe him. I couldn't. Not after everything you'd done. Everything you'd risked. Jake paused. You were my dad's rookie partner. You've been investigating Wagner all along, waiting for the right moment. You were working with the FBI the whole time. Sarah nodded. When you found that warehouse room, when Rex alerted to Wagner's evidence, I knew it was finally time to move. I just didn't expect it to move this fast, or for you to end up in the middle of a hostage situation. Is it over? Is Wagner really done? The raids are executing now. Wagner's house, his storage units, the homes of 6 officers we identified as being on his payroll. By morning, we'll have arrested everyone involved and secured all the evidence. It's over, Jake. You won. But Jake didn't feel like he'd won. He felt exhausted, drained, like he'd been holding up a weight for days and had only just been allowed to set it down. My dad's evidence, the USB drive, it was the key to everything, wasn't it? Your father died protecting that evidence and protecting Linda Rodriguez. He knew if Wagner ever found out she'd testified, she'd be killed. So he hid the evidence, hid her testimony, and planned to use it only when he could guarantee her safety. Sarah's eyes were bright with unshed tears. He died before he could execute that plan. But you finished it. You saved her. You saved her children. You did what he couldn't. Jake looked down at Rex, who was watching him with those steady, loyal brown eyes. The dog who'd refused to ignore evidence even when ordered. The dog who'd alerted perfectly, professionally, to the truth Wagner wanted hidden. The dog Wagner had ordered executed simply for doing his job too well. I couldn't have done any of it without Rex. Sarah crouched, scratched Rex's ears. Yeah, he's pretty special. She stood, wiped her eyes. Come on, Morris wants your statement and then you need rest. Real rest, in a real bed. Not a motel, not a cabin, not hiding. What about my apartment? Can I go home? Your apartment is a crime scene. Wagner's people ransacked it looking for evidence while you were gone. But the FBI is putting you up in a hotel until this settles. Nice place, room service, the works. They figure you've earned it. And Rex? Rex is a hero. He goes where you go. They walked toward Sarah's car, Rex between them, tail wagging despite the chaos and violence and blood. To the dog, this was just another successful mission. Bad guys caught, innocent people saved, partner safe. Everything a K9 was trained to accomplish. As they drove through the city, Jake watched the streets pass outside the window. Somewhere in this city, Wagner was being processed, fingerprinted, charged with conspiracy, corruption, evidence tampering, attempted murder. His operation was collapsing, his co-conspirators were being arrested, and 16 years of corruption was finally being exposed to daylight. Justice, Jake thought. Real justice. Not the kind that came from following orders blindly, but the kind that came from having the courage to question orders when they were wrong. His father had tried to deliver that justice and died for it. Jake had tried to deliver that same justice and somehow survived. The difference, he realized, was Rex. His father had worked alone, had tried to protect Linda Rodriguez without backup, without anyone he could trust completely. Jake had Rex, a partner who was loyal, brave, incorruptible, and too well trained to ignore evidence no matter who ordered him to. Wagner had made a fatal mistake when he ordered Jake to kill Rex. He'd assumed Jake would value his career, his badge, his place in the system more than he valued his partner. He'd been wrong, and that mistake had cost him everything. What happens now? Jake asked Sarah. After the statements, after the investigation, after all of it? Sarah was quiet for a moment, navigating traffic. That depends on you. The department will offer you reinstatement. Full restoration of rank, back pay, probably a commendation. They'll want to make this right, publicly acknowledge that you were wrongly accused. But you'll always be the cop who refused a direct order. Some people will respect that. Others will see you as a troublemaker, someone who can't be trusted to follow the chain of command. Your career won't be easy, Jake. My father's career wasn't easy either. He did the right thing anyway. Yeah, he did. Sarah pulled into the FBI field office parking garage. Take some time. Give your statements, let the adrenaline wear off, get some sleep, then decide what you want. You've got options now. The FBI would take you in a heartbeat. Morris already mentioned K9 Division. Private security firms would line up to hire you and Rex. Hell, you could write a book, do speaking tours, never have to wear a uniform again if you don't want to. Jake looked at Rex, who was watching him with patient, trusting eyes. What do you think, boy? Want to stay cops? Or try something new? Rex's tail wagged. Yeah, Jake smiled. That's helpful. Thanks. He didn't have the answers yet, but for the first time in days, he didn't feel hunted. He didn't feel like a fugitive. He felt like a cop who'd done his job, protected innocence, and exposed corruption. He felt like his father would have been proud. And as he walked into the FBI field office with Rex at his heel and Sarah at his side, Jake Morrison finally understood what his father had meant all those years ago. Sometimes the right thing and the legal thing aren't the same. When that happens, you look in the mirror and decide what kind of person you are. Jake had made his decision. He'd chosen Rex. He'd chosen truth. He'd chosen justice over orders. And he'd do it again in a heartbeat. The FBI interview room was nothing like the interrogation rooms at Metro PD. No harsh fluorescent lights, no metal table bolted to the floor, no two-way mirror on the wall. Just a comfortable office with soft lighting, decent coffee, and Agent Rebecca Morris sitting across from Jake with a recorder between them and a gentle, professional demeanor. Rex lay at Jake's feet, finally relaxed after the adrenaline of the warehouse confrontation. The dog had been examined by a veterinarian, FBI protocol for K-9s involved in operations, and declared physically sound. No injuries, just some bruising and the residual stress of combat. Jake wished he could say the same for himself. His hands still shook slightly when he held the coffee cup, and every unexpected sound made him flinch. The crash was coming, he knew. The post-adrenaline collapse, the processing of everything that had happened over the past 72 hours. But first, he had to get through this statement. "Let's start from the beginning," Morris said, her voice kind. "The morning Captain Wagner gave you the order to execute Rex. Tell me everything." So Jake did. He walked her through the warehouse patrol, Rex's perfect alert, the hidden room full of stolen evidence, Wagner's phone call, the order to drive to the industrial lot and put his partner down, the decision to run instead. Morris listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes, her expression carefully neutral. But Jake could see something in her eyes, anger at Wagner, respect for Jake's choice, determination to see this through. "When you found your father's evidence at the memorial," Morris asked, "did you know what was on the USB drive?" "Not until I opened it. I knew my dad had been investigating corruption, but I didn't know how deep it went. I didn't know Linda Rodriguez had given testimony 16 years ago. I didn't know he'd documented everything so thoroughly. Your father was a meticulous investigator. If he'd lived to present that evidence, Wagner would have gone to prison back then." Morris paused. "I'm sorry you had to finish what he started. That's a heavy burden for a son to carry. He died trying to protect Linda and her kids. The least I could do was make sure his death meant something." The interview continued for 3 hours. Every detail, every decision, every piece of evidence documented and recorded. When Morris finally clicked off the recorder, Jake felt hollowed out, empty. "We have everything we need," Morris said. "Between your testimony, the recorded confessions from the warehouse, your father's files, and Detective Chen's investigation, the case against Wagner is airtight. He'll be charged federally with conspiracy, corruption, evidence tampering, attempted murder, and about 40 other counts. He's looking at life in prison." "What about the others? Dave Kowalski, the other officers involved?" "Kowalski's cooperating. Broken shoulder, bruised ego, and a sudden willingness to testify against Wagner in exchange for a reduced sentence. The others are being rounded up as we speak. By tomorrow morning, Wagner's entire network will be in federal custody." Jake looked down at Rex, who had shifted position to rest his head on Jake's foot. The simple contact, the weight and warmth of his partner, was grounding. "What happens to me now?" Morris closed her folder. "The local charges against you are being dropped. The DA reviewed everything and concluded that you refused an illegal order and acted to prevent a crime. You're not a fugitive anymore, Officer Morrison. You're a cop who did the right thing under extraordinary circumstances." "And my job?" That's between you and Metro PD, but I can tell you that Chief Williams called me personally an hour ago. He wants to meet with you tomorrow, discuss reinstatement and recognition for your actions. Jake tried to process that. Chief Williams, the top of the Metro PD hierarchy, wanted to personally reinstate him. It should have felt like vindication, like victory. Instead, it felt complicated. I need to think about it. Morris nodded, understanding. Take all the time you need. But Jake? Whatever you decide, you should know that you have a standing offer from the FBI. Our K-9 division would be lucky to have you and Rex, and our handlers don't get orders to execute their partners when they do their jobs too well. She stood, held out her hand. Jake shook it, feeling the weight of possibility and choice. Get some rest, Morris said. Real rest. You've earned it. We'll handle things from here. The hotel room the FBI provided was on the 12th floor of a nice downtown property, the kind of place Jake couldn't normally afford on a patrol officer's salary. King bed, flat-screen TV, room service menu, and a view of the city lights spreading out like stars. Rex immediately jumped on the bed, turned 3 circles, and collapsed with a contented sigh. Jake almost told him to get down. Dogs weren't supposed to be on hotel beds, then laughed at himself. They'd just taken down a corrupt police captain, survived a hostage situation, and exposed a 16-year conspiracy. If Rex wanted to sleep on the bed, he'd earned it. Jake ordered room service, steak for himself, plain chicken for Rex, and took the first real shower he'd had in 3 days. The hot water felt like forgiveness, washing away dirt and blood and fear. When he emerged, towel wrapped around his waist, the food had arrived. They ate in comfortable silence, Jake on the edge of the bed, Rex on the floor with his chicken. The dog ate carefully, methodically, then returned to the bed and pressed against Jake's side. Some week, huh, boy? Rex's tail thumped against the comforter. Jake's phone, his actual phone, returned by the FBI after Wagner's arrest, showed 47 missed calls. His mother, colleagues, friends, reporters who'd somehow gotten his number. He ignored them all except one. Sarah Chen had texted, "Proud of you. Your dad would be too. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be intense." Jake typed back, "Thank you. For everything. For believing me. For risking your career. For finishing Dad's investigation." Her response came quickly. "Your dad taught me what it means to be a real cop. You reminded me. We're even." Jake set the phone aside, laid back on the bed with Rex sprawled beside him, and stared at the ceiling. His mind was racing, processing, replaying moments from the past 3 days. The look in Rex's eyes when Wagner ordered his execution. The weight of his father's note, 16 years of evidence hidden at a memorial. Linda Rodriguez's face when she realized someone had finally come to save her. Wagner's expression when federal agents swarmed the warehouse. The feel of Rex pressing against his leg, loyal and brave and unshakably devoted. Jake had started this week as a regular patrol officer, following orders, doing his job, trusting the system. He was ending it as someone who'd defied that system, exposed its corruption, and proven that sometimes the rules existed to be questioned. His father had paid for that lesson with his life. Jake had paid for it with his badge, his certainty, and his faith that good cops could change a broken system from within. But he'd gained something too. He'd gained the knowledge that when forced to choose between his partner and his career, he'd chosen correctly. He'd gained proof that loyalty and integrity mattered more than advancement or approval. He'd gained the truth about his father's death and the satisfaction of finishing what Gregory Morrison had started. And he'd gained a future full of choices. Stay with Metro PD, where some would see him as a hero and others as a troublemaker? Join the FBI, start fresh, work cases that mattered without the politics of local departments? Leave law enforcement entirely, find a new path, use his experience to teach or consult or write? Rex shifted, rested his head on Jake's chest, and looked up at him with those steady brown eyes. "What do you think, partner? What should we do?" Rex's tail wagged slowly. Yeah, that's what I thought too. We'll figure it out together. Jake closed his eyes, one hand resting on Rex's head, and for the first time in 72 hours, he slept without nightmares. The press conference was Agent Morris's idea, but Chief Williams enthusiastically endorsed it. The public needs to see that Metro PD takes corruption seriously, the chief had said during their early morning meeting. They need to see that good cops like you still exist. Jake had agreed reluctantly on the condition that Rex be present and that Linda Rodriguez didn't have to attend. Morris arranged everything, and by 2 p.m., Jake found himself standing in front of a podium with a dozen microphones, cameras everywhere, Rex sitting at perfect attention beside him. Chief Williams spoke first, praising the brave officer who refused an illegal order and exposed systematic corruption. Agent Morris spoke next, detailing the FBI's investigation and the charges against Wagner and his co-conspirators. Then it was Jake's turn. He approached the podium, looked out at the sea of reporters and cameras, and felt Rex press against his leg in support. "My name is Officer Jake Morrison," he began, voice steady despite his nerves. 72 hours ago, I was given a direct order to execute my K-9 partner Rex because he'd done his job too well. He'd found evidence of a massive evidence tampering operation run by Captain Richard Wagner. Rather than kill my partner for being a good police dog, I refused the order and went on the run. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. Jake continued. What I discovered during those 3 days is that my father, Detective Gregory Morrison, had been investigating the same corruption 16 years ago. He died before he could expose it, but he left evidence hidden at his own memorial, waiting for someone to find it. That evidence, combined with the work of Detective Sarah Chen and the FBI, has now brought down Captain Wagner and everyone who helped him steal from the evidence vault and sell justice to the highest bidder. Jake paused, looked down at Rex. None of this would have been possible without my partner. Rex is a K-9 who's been trained to find evidence and alert to contraband. He did exactly that. And when I was ordered to kill him for it, I had to make a choice, follow an illegal order or protect my partner and find out why someone wanted him dead. He looked back at the cameras. I chose my partner. I'd make the same choice again, because that's what loyalty means, that's what integrity means, and that's what being a cop should mean, protecting the innocent, exposing the guilty, and refusing to compromise when you know something is wrong. The questions came rapid fire after that. About Wagner, about the evidence, about Jake's plans. He answered what he could, deflected what he couldn't, and let Morris handle the legal details. But one question stuck with him, asked by a young reporter in the back. Officer Morrison, do you regret becoming a cop? Jake had thought about that question a lot in the past 3 days. His answer surprised even himself. No, I don't regret it. My father was a cop who died fighting corruption. I became a cop to honor him, to continue his legacy. And even though the system failed him, even though it almost failed me and Rex, I still believe in what being a cop should mean. I believe in protecting people who can't protect themselves. I believe in finding truth when others want it buried. I believe that good cops can make a difference. He looked down at Rex again, at the dog who'd started this whole thing with a perfect alert to hidden evidence. I believe in partners who never give up, even when the odds are impossible. And I believe that sometimes the most important thing a cop can do is refuse an order that's wrong, even when refusing costs everything. The press conference ended with Chief Williams announcing that Jake was being awarded the Medal of Valor for his actions. Rex was being awarded the K-9 Medal of Honor, the first time a dog had received the department's highest recognition in 15 years. Afterward, in a quiet hallway away from the cameras, Sarah Chen found Jake. You did good up there, she said. I just told the truth. The truth is harder than people think. Sarah handed him a folder. Linda Rodriguez wanted me to give you this. Inside was a handwritten letter on simple notebook paper. Officer Morrison, I don't have the words to thank you for what you did. For 16 years, I've been trapped in Captain Wagner's operation, forced to help him steal evidence, terrified every day that he'd hurt my children if I didn't cooperate. Your father tried to save me, tried to stop Wagner, and I've carried the guilt of his death for all these years, knowing he died trying to protect me. When you came to that warehouse, when you walked in knowing you might die, when your dog attacked to protect my children, you gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope, freedom, the belief that good people still exist. My children are safe now. We're in witness protection, starting a new life, and for the first time in 16 years, I'm not afraid. That's because of you and Rex. Your father would be so proud of the man you've become. I am too. Thank you for finishing what he started. Thank you for proving that integrity and loyalty still matter. With gratitude, Linda Rodriguez. Jake read the letter twice, vision blurring. He folded it carefully, put it back in the folder, and looked at Sarah. She's really safe? Her and the kids? FBI witness protection, new names, new location, financial support until she gets on her feet. Wagner will never find her. Good. That's good. Sarah studied his face. You okay? Yeah, just processing. My whole life I've wondered if my dad's death meant anything, if his investigation accomplished anything. Now I know it did. He protected Linda, hid the evidence, and waited for someone to find it. He knew he might not live to finish the case, but he made sure someone could. And you did. You finished it. We finished it. You, me, Morris, Rex, team effort. Sarah smiled. So what's next, Officer Morrison? Back to patrol? Detective track? The FBI offer? Jake looked down at Rex, who was sitting patiently, waiting for whatever came next with the calm trust of a dog who knew his partner would make the right choice. I honestly don't know yet. The chief offered me reinstatement with a promotion. Morris offered me FBI K-9 division. I've had calls from 3 private security firms, 2 consulting companies, and a publisher who wants me to write a book. You're in demand. I'm exhausted, Jake corrected, and I need time to figure out what I actually want versus what people expect me to want. Take the time. The world will wait. Sarah checked her watch. I've got to get back. More arrests to coordinate, more evidence to process. But Jake, whatever you decide, I'm proud to know you. Your dad would be proud too. She walked away, leaving Jake alone with Rex in the quiet hallway. Just you and me again, partner, like it's been all week. Rex's tail wagged. Yeah, let's get out of here. 3 weeks later, Jake stood at his father's memorial in the small park downtown. He'd come here a dozen times since the warehouse confrontation, sometimes alone, sometimes with his mother, once with Sarah Chen. Today, he'd brought Rex. The German shepherd sat quietly beside the memorial wall, as if understanding the solemnity of the place. Jake ran his fingers over his father's name, etched in black granite. Hey, Dad, I figured it was time for an update. The park was empty, except for them, giving Jake the privacy to talk to a ghost. Wagner's in federal prison awaiting trial. His lawyers are trying to work a plea deal, but Morris says no chance. He's going away for life. Linda Rodriguez and her kids are safe, starting over somewhere Wagner can never reach them. And the department's going through a complete overhaul of evidence procedures. Your death led to all of that. Took 16 years, but justice finally came. A breeze rustled the leaves overhead, and Jake took it as acknowledgement. I've been thinking a lot about what you told me, about the right thing versus the legal thing, about looking in the mirror and deciding what kind of person you want to be. I made that choice when I refused to kill Rex, and I'm making another one now. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. Inside was a letter he'd written that morning, addressed to Chief Williams. I'm leaving Metro PD. Not because I don't believe in being a cop, I do. But because I can't work for a department that let you die, that protected Wagner for 16 years, that only cares about corruption when it becomes public. The FBI offered me a position in their K-9 division. Rex and I start next month. Rex's ears perked at his name, but the dog remained still, respectful of the memorial. I think you'd approve. Federal cases working with Morris and other agents who actually care about justice, not politics. And the best part? Rex is recognized as my equal partner, not department property. They can't order me to kill him if he does his job too well. Jake knelt, placed his hand on the base of the memorial where he'd found his father's hidden evidence. I met Mom for dinner last week. She's doing well, sends her love. She said you always knew I'd end up being a cop even when I was a kid. Said you saw something in me, some need to protect people and fix broken things. He paused, throat tight. I hope I made you proud, Dad. I hope finishing your investigation, saving Linda, taking down Wagner, I hope that means something. The breeze picked up again, warmer this time, and Jake chose to believe it was an answer. He stood, brushed dirt from his knees, and looked at Rex. Come on, partner, let's go home. They walked through the park toward Jake's car, a new one, purchased with the advance from the book deal he'd signed. The memoir would be titled The Partner I Refused to Kill, and all proceeds were going to a fund for retired K-9s and the families of officers killed in the line of duty. As they drove through the city, Jake thought about the future. FBI training started in 3 weeks. New job, new cases, new challenges. But the same partner, the same loyalty, the same commitment to doing what was right even when it was hard. His phone buzzed. Sarah Chen. Hey, Jake. Just wanted to let you know. Final count is 23 arrests connected to Wagner's operation. Everything from beat cops to a deputy DA. The whole network is coming down. Good. That's really good. Also, there's something you should see. Turn on Channel 7. Jake pulled over, switched on the car's radio to the news station. A reporter was standing outside the federal courthouse. Unprecedented ceremony today as 16 cases were officially reopened and declared mistrials due to evidence tampering by former Captain Richard Wagner. Among those being released is Marcus Vitale, who has spent 12 years in prison for a crime prosecutors now admit may have been based on fabricated evidence. The camera cut to a man in his early 50s, thin and weathered, blinking in sunlight like someone seeing it for the first time in years. Marcus Vitale was convicted of murder based largely on physical evidence that, we now know, was handled by officers working with Captain Wagner. While Vitale maintains his innocence and is pursuing legal action, his immediate release highlights the far-reaching impact of the corruption uncovered by Officer Jake Morrison and his K-9 partner Rex. Jake's stomach turned. Marcus Vitale, the name had been in his father's files as a suspected criminal middleman buying evidence from Wagner. But could he have been framed? Could Wagner have sent an innocent man to prison to protect his real partners? He called Sarah back. Tell me about Vitale. It's complicated. He was definitely involved in criminal activity. We have evidence of that from other sources. But the murder conviction? Based entirely on evidence Wagner handled, with no independent corroboration. Might have been real, might have been Wagner framing a guy who was getting too close to the operation. We'll probably never know for sure. So we might have freed a murderer. Or freed an innocent man who spent 12 years in prison. That's the thing about corruption, Jake. It poisons everything it touches. Every case Wagner handled, every conviction based on his evidence. All of it's now questionable. Some guilty people might walk free because we can't prove they're guilty without tainted evidence. Jake closed his eyes, processing. This was the cost of corruption, not just the crimes committed, but the justice denied, the uncertainty, the cases that could never be retried because the evidence was forever compromised. That's why we do this job the right way, Sarah continued. That's why integrity matters. Because when cops go bad, it's not just their crimes. It's every case they ever touched, every conviction they helped secure, all of it suspect forever. I know. You okay? Yeah, just remembering why I made the choice I made. Why refusing to compromise matters. It does matter, Jake. It always will. The call ended, and Jake sat in his car with Rex beside him, watching the city move around them. People going about their lives, trusting that cops were honest, that evidence was real, that justice meant something. Most of the time, it did. Most cops were good people doing hard work with integrity. But all it took was one Captain Wagner to poison the well. Jake started the car, pulled back into traffic, and headed toward his new apartment, a bigger place with a yard for Rex in a neighborhood where no one knew him as the cop who defied orders, or the officer who exposed corruption. Just another guy with his dog living quietly. His phone rang one more time. Unknown number, but Jake answered anyway. "Officer Morrison? This is Detective Michael Torres, your father's old partner." Jake's hands tightened on the wheel. "Detective Torres, what can I do for you?" "I wanted to apologize for not helping when you first reached out. I was scared, compromised, had spent 16 years keeping my head down and hoping Wagner never came after me too. You tried to warn my dad. You investigated his death. You did what you could. Not enough. But I wanted you to know, watching you finish what your father started, seeing Wagner finally answer for his crimes, it gave me back something I thought I'd lost. Faith that good cops still exist. Faith that standing up to corruption is possible. Thank you, sir." "No, thank you. And Jake, your father talked about you all the time. He worried you'd follow him into this job, worried you'd face the same choices he did, the same dangers. But he also said if you did become a cop, you'd be the kind who'd do it right." Turns out, he was correct. Torres hung up, leaving Jake with a tight throat and stinging eyes. "You hear that, Rex? Dad knew. He knew I'd end up here doing this, making these choices." Rex's tail wagged, the dog perfectly content as long as they were together. Jake drove to his new apartment, unloaded Rex's things, and stood in the empty living room thinking about furniture and decorations and what kind of life he wanted to build here. The Medal of Valor sat in a box on the counter, along with his official commendation from Metro PD. The K9 Medal of Honor for Rex was there too, a beautiful piece of metalwork that hung from a blue and gold ribbon. Jake picked up Rex's medal, crouched down, and showed it to his partner. "This is yours, boy, for being brave, for doing your job perfectly, for refusing to give false alerts even when it would have been easier, for being the best partner I could have asked for." He clipped the medal to Rex's collar, stepped back, and took a photo. The German Shepherd sat at attention, professional as always, the medal gleaming on his chest. That photo, Jake decided, would be the first thing he hung in the new apartment. A reminder of what mattered: loyalty, integrity, courage, and the unbreakable bond between a cop and his K9 partner. The FBI's K9 training facility was in Virginia, a sprawling campus of training grounds, obstacle courses, and housing for handlers and their partners. Jake and Rex had graduated at the top of their class, specializing in evidence recovery and tracking for federal cases. Their first major case had been a kidnapping, a senator's daughter taken from a parking garage with no witnesses and minimal evidence. Rex had tracked the scent through 3 miles of urban environment, leading agents to an abandoned building where the girl was being held. She'd been rescued, kidnappers arrested, and Rex had earned his first federal commendation. Jake's memoir had been published to strong reviews and even stronger sales. The money was being used for exactly what he'd promised: supporting retired K9s and families of fallen officers. A foundation had been established in his father's name, the Gregory Morrison Fund for Police Integrity. Sarah Chen had been promoted to captain, overseeing the Reformed Evidence Division at Metro PD. She'd cleaned house, implemented new protocols, and turned the division into a model of transparency and accountability. Linda Rodriguez had sent one more letter, this one with photos of her children at their new school, smiling and healthy and safe. "We're living the life your father wanted for us," she wrote. "We're free." Captain Richard Wagner had been convicted on 37 federal counts and sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. The trial had lasted 3 weeks, with Jake, Sarah, Linda, and dozens of other witnesses testifying. Wagner had shown no remorse, maintaining his innocence despite overwhelming evidence. 6 other officers had been convicted alongside him. Dave Kowalski had received a reduced sentence in exchange for testimony and would spend 8 years in prison. The deputy DA who'd been helping suppress cases was disbarred and facing his own criminal charges. And Jake Morrison, the cop who'd refused to kill his partner, was now Special Agent Morrison, FBI K-9 Division, working cases that mattered with a partner he trusted absolutely. On the 6-month anniversary of Wagner's arrest, Jake stood in the FBI training yard, watching Rex demonstrate perfect evidence recovery technique for a class of new handlers and their dogs. The German Shepherd moved through the scenario flawlessly, alerting to hidden evidence, indicating without disturbing, maintaining focus despite distractions. 6 months at FBI, and Rex was already legendary among the K-9 community. The dog who'd exposed corruption survived an execution order and proven that sometimes the most important thing a K-9 could do was refuse to be silenced. After the demonstration, Jake and Rex walked the facility grounds, enjoying the late afternoon sunshine. Other handlers waved, offering respect and friendship. Here, Jake wasn't the troublemaker or the cop who defied orders. He was just a good agent with an exceptional partner. His phone buzzed. His mother sending a photo of his father's memorial. Someone had left flowers, and tucked among them was a note. "Thank you for finishing what he started. Thank you for proving good cops still exist. A grateful citizen." Jake smiled, showed the photo to Rex. "You see that, boy? People remember. They care. What we did mattered." Rex's tail wagged and Jake scratched behind the dog's ears. "I've been thinking," Jake said, "about what the reporter asked me at that press conference, if I regretted becoming a cop. I said no then, and I'd say no today. But I'd add something." Rex looked up at him, attentive. "I'd say that being a cop taught me the difference between following orders and doing what's right. It taught me that systems can be corrupt, but individual people can still choose integrity. It taught me that loyalty isn't about blind obedience. It's about standing by your partner even when the whole world tells you you're wrong." Jake knelt, looked into Rex's intelligent brown eyes. "Most importantly, it taught me that the best partner I ever had walked on 4 legs, never asked for anything except to do his job well, and trusted me enough to put his life in my hands. You could have alerted falsely when Wagner wanted you to. You could have ignored evidence to make life easier, but you didn't. You were honest and brave and perfect, and you reminded me what being a good cop actually means." Rex licked his face, tail wagging harder. "I love you too, boy. Best partner I ever had. Best partner I'll ever have." They walked back toward the residential building as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Jake thought about the journey. From that moment in the industrial lot when Wagner ordered him to kill Rex, through the days on the run, the investigation, the confrontation, the arrests, and finally, to here. To a new life, a new job, and the certainty that he'd made the right choice. Some people would say he'd lost everything, his badge, his rank, his place at Metro PD. But Jake knew better. He'd gained his integrity. He'd gained justice for his father. He'd gained freedom from a corrupt system. Most importantly, he'd gained the knowledge that when forced to choose between his career and his partner, he'd chosen the partner, and he'd make that choice again, every single time. Because that's what loyalty meant. That's what integrity meant. And that's what being a cop, a real cop, should always mean. Jake and Rex walked into their new home together, partners and friends and brothers in everything that mattered, ready for whatever came next. Together, as they'd always been. As they'd always be. Thank you for watching this story on Rex, the K-9 hero. If this story touched your heart, leave your like. subscribe to the Rex, the K9 Hero channel, turn on notifications so you never miss a story, and write in the comments which city you're watching from. Share this video with someone who loves dogs, believes in justice, and knows that sometimes the most important thing we can do is refuse an order that's wrong. Remember, courage has 4 paws, loyalty never quits, and the best partners are the ones who stand by us even when the whole world says we're wrong. This is Rex, the K9 Hero, where every story proves that sometimes the best partner has 4 paws. Until next time, stay loyal, stay brave, and never forget that doing the right thing matters more than following orders.